Sam Cosentino joining us on the line. Sammy, we love you. Thanks for jumping on, man. You have enough contacts inside the OHL, as we know. What is the feeling inside the league based on what's happened over the last couple hours, Sammy?
Well, from the OHL's perspective, I think David Branch has gotten out in front of this thing a little bit and probably has asked people not to be vocal about it. I know from a league statement, they don't really want to have much more to say about it until they get to February. And I think that's probably the right approach to take. But I've had people from other leagues send me text messages, and they're rather interesting. I'll leave it at that. But I'm of the, what do you call it? A quote tweeter quote? What is it?
Quote tweeter?
So the gentleman who said, like, why are we having this discussion when we don't even know what's going to happen in February? We may not even be able to play in February. We might be in a third or a fourth wave in February. So I think to have this discussion now is really preliminary, because no one knows where we're going to be in February. In fact, there's not a lot of people that are going to know where we're going to be next Wednesday after the U.S. election. So to talk about this and have this discussion, to me, it's premature in my opinion. Now, if the ultimatum says that we get to February and that ultimatum from Right Honorable McLeod still exists, then it is what it is. So you decide to play or you decide not to play. And at some points, depending on fans and whatever else, there's so many things that have to be taken into consideration here. But at the end of the day, I love how all these people all of a sudden are huge OHL fans and they watched a million games and, oh my God, you're going to ruin a great game of hockey and whatever else. Stop it already. It is what it is. Everything about 2020 is different. Baseball, NHL, playing in a bubble, it's all different. So if for 1 year, and that's the expectation, that you have to play without body contact, and there's no question you're going to have incidental body contact and whatever else. And to think that the premise of taking body contact away is going to stop the spread, yeah, maybe it mitigates it, but you're still going to be breathing on guys when you go into the corner to get a puck or in face-offs or whatever else. But if that's what makes people happy, if that's what passes it through to allow you to play, then surely they're going to say, let's go ahead and play. It's not like the physical part of the game is so overwhelmingly a part of the game these days that, oh my gosh, we're going to drastically change the game without it. We've talked for years, since the lockout back in 04 and 05, about we need to get to a speed game, a skill game. Smaller players are able to play and have an impact, and all of these other things that people were trumpeting the horn. Oh yeah, the game is so great now. And all of a sudden you take body contact out, which, yeah, of course it's a part of the game. But if you're taking it out for 1 year, it's not like you've killed it entirely. So, I love all these people who come out of the woodwork. Oh, you're going to kill the great game of hockey and you're going to kill Canada. Stop it. Just stop it.
Sam Cosentino joining us here on Tim and Sid. The follow-up, there's a bunch of COVID questions, and I'm not an epidemiologist. I don't even want to play one on TV. So I'll just ask you this. Can the OHL, Sammy, play games without fans in the stands? Like, do they have the wherewithal to be able to play games and have a season without fans in the stands? Do they have the economic wherewithal to do this?
It's the resources, and that's a great question, Tim. And I don't think that there's any doubt when we look across the 60-team CHL and not just the Ontario Hockey League, that this will have had a significant impact. You talked about taking away, some regular season games at the end of last year, all the playoffs. And as you know, in the CHL, more teams get into the playoffs than not. And for good reason, because it becomes a pretty good revenue generator to help pay for all the bills of the regular season, the travel, the equipment, the ice, the coaching, so on and so forth. So I think you're going to see a different Canadian Hockey League, all told. I do believe that there are some franchises that are not going to be able to survive this. And I think part of the debate that's happening right now, Tim, is, are we better off financially by not playing at all? Or are we better off by playing a shortened season? And again, it really differs regionally. This thing never has the regionality of the CHL been more prevalent than it is now, because what's happening in Quebec is different than Ontario, than Saskatchewan, Manitoba, the Northwestern United States, Michigan, Pennsylvania. So you have to take into consideration all of the different health agencies that are playing a part in this. But getting back to answer your question, I can't see that if there is no season or there are no fans allowed, that we get into the 21-22 season, I think things are going to look drastically different right across the CHL.
Sam Cosentino here on Tim and Sid. We're talking about the Minister of Tourism, Culture, and Sport in Ontario today, saying and then reinforcing multiple times that the OHL can start next February, but with basically no hitting due to health and safety reasons. This has obviously set off a bit of an interesting discussion, considering we here in Canada like our hockey. Sammy, you referenced text from other teams. I'm not asking for the details on that, but if you're a Western Hockey League franchise and you're seeing this, and you're seeing numbers across the country. I mean, Manitoba went to a code red today. Unfortunately, this isn't ending anytime soon. What are you hearing from teams out west when this is the noise out of Ontario?
Well, no question. Ron Robinson has the biggest challenge of any of the three commissioners because of how widespread his league is. You know, Manitoba all the way over to BC, everywhere in between, and of course a couple of states, the northwestern United States, which have all kinds of turmoil aside from the pandemic. So it's going to be really difficult. But again, it's such a fluid thing that the plans change on a daily basis, right, and the contingencies change on a daily basis. So what might happen in Manitoba when they go into a code red affects the Brandon Wheat Kings, maybe not necessarily, but it probably affects the Winnipeg Ice. So now you're talking about two teams in the same province that are, 2 hours apart, where one is completely impacted because it's in a red zone and maybe the other isn't. And the same thing can be said about Saskatchewan. What's happening in Swift Current might be different than what's happening in Prince Albert. Alberta, Lethbridge in the south, all the way to Red Deer, Edmonton in the north. So there are so many moving parts to this thing. Once we hit the key dates in terms of the start of season, so January 8th for the Western Hockey League, and February 4th for the Ontario Hockey League, we'll have a better determination of what this is going to look like. But just like anything else in life right now, guys, it changes on a daily basis. So too do the contingencies. And so you're looking at what's happening in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. Every 5 minutes, they have to cancel games because this team's in a red zone, this team's not. This team went into Orange and New Brunswick, and Moncton had to shut down for a few games. So I'm getting texts and emails all the time from official parties, from coaches, from general managers, from owners that are having all kinds of crazy thoughts and changes and consideration as to what's going to happen. So right. I think we have to get to those dates first and decide even if it's viable to have a season at that point before we start talking about how the game is going to look once we actually begin playing.
Right. Sam Cosentino, Sportsnet junior hockey analyst, someone who knows junior hockey as well as, if not better than anyone in the country. Mike writes in, and there's a lot of guys writing in like this, Sam, asking, well, what's the difference between the NHL playing and the OHL playing in Ontario? And the answer is pretty easy. It's the economics to be able to, one, run a bubble, and two, do the extensive testing that the NHL did. And that was millions and millions of dollars that the NHL spent. So for those wondering what the difference is, it's that the OHL can't do what the NHL did, right?
No question, Timmy. And the other thing is they're kids. We're talking about kids. I mean, you have kids. They're not too far from 16 and being eligible to play in the Ontario Hockey League. So are you about to send your kid here in Mississauga up to Sault Ste. Marie to go live in a billet home, to trust that at that time he's going to be able to do all things and follow protocols? They're kids. That's the first thing that anyone has to consider. So any point of mitigation, whether you believe it's true, whether you believe it's a hoax, whether you believe it's political or not, if truly the main goal is mitigation, how can you be wrong? Really? They're kids, guys. They're kids. Really, that's what it comes down to.
And we forget that in junior hockey way too often.
For sure we do. We look at what's happening. World Juniors, you're looking at the NHL draft, a couple of years after a kid's drafted, he's playing in the National Hockey League, and you kind of take the approach that he's an NHL player. No, they're not. They're kids. Shane Wright, 15, 16 years old. I mean, my goodness, that should be the first consideration in any of this. So it's a hugely difficult line that we have to walk, but I think that's the most important thing, is to remember, number one, their kids and their safety is first and foremost.
Good job.
I know a closing line when I hear it, Sammy, and that is a closing. In all seriousness, I was going to go down the road of, well, if you can't hit, how do scouts pick out players? Because, I mean, how many times did I hear you and Berkey and everyone on the desk and Jeff Merrick during the draft saying, he's great on the forecheck, aggressive, he's a physical presence. Like, that's all you hear that a lot. But that can differentiate some really talented kids when you're trying to decide what's a second rounder and what's a fourth rounder. The question doesn't matter because what you just said is bang on. They're kids.
Agree.
Let's wait and see what happens.
The whole scouting thing, guys, that's an entirely different conversation, and I would love to have that conversation with you moving forward because I have had plenty of those conversations on the golf course, through text, through email, phone, whatever, and that part in and of itself is fascinating and worthy of an entire segment, I believe.
Go ahead. I was going
to say, speaking of kids, I can hear the little baseball player back there. Appreciate you doing this. Let's talk again soon, whether it be on air or off air. Always like catching up with you, man.
My son just came to take me out of the game. Thanks, guys.
Love you, brother. Take care.
Bring in the righty.
See ya. Thanks, guys.
There's Sam Cosentino, Sportsnet junior hockey analyst, and we brought our sons out to play a little baseball together, so I was making the reference there.